the big news from this is these are Google's first phones with their own chips, which is really interesting because now that Apple has had so much success over its own chips, Google's got to have a go as well. And I think Google can do it, right? I think Google's got the engineering capabilities. I think they've got a better understanding of how to produce these chips with, partners and everything.
Hmm.
Um, the funny thing is though, all the videos they've got this double embargo thing happening with all the YouTube content creators, which is pissing them off. So the YouTube content creators got the phone, but they couldn't talk about the software. So you couldn't test the phones. You could just look at the hardware. And I believe the embargo for everything else drops tomorrow on the 25th. So no one knows.
You're gonna see all the
Yeah, all at
videos on
once. It's
YouTube.
going to hit you like 4 hours of videos. And Jeff and I are going to do what we can to listen to some of them and give you what you need to know. But really strange sort of strategy from Google just to drive up the pre-sales. I would think that is the strategy behind it, to do a double embargo.
Mm. I mean, we can talk about the phones. I mean, we don't have
Yep.
them, but from from what we've seen, there were multiple leaks as
Yep.
usual, months in advance. Thank you, John Prosser, for making those again. I actually like the look of them,
Mm.
and I'm gonna, my 13 Pro with the massive bump.
Yep.
One of the more annoying things is the way it kind of
Rattles.
sits there on the table. It does rattle. Now, because the bump on the pixels are
They
going
they call it the
across
visor.
the back, the
The
LaForge
LaForge. Right here. Got it.
from Star
Yep.
Trek. Yeah, so I think it's going to sit nicely, and I think and at a slight angle as well, right?
Yeah.
So
It brings back memories of your Nexus 6P, I thought. It kind of has that vibe and feel about it. The pricing is super competitive. I believe it's 1,000 AUD for the Pixel, and the Pixel Pro is, let me just have a quick look, starting at 1299. So, what do we expect from the Pixels before the mass sort of upload of videos tomorrow? Amazing cameras. The Pixels have always been very competitive with that. A lot of cool software features. There will be 2 new sort of voice services to take calls for you, that you can put on hold for. I don't remember what those services were called, but I think that's what really makes the Pixel stand out. Not so much the hardware, but also the software. And now that it has a tensor chip to do all the neural networking, the image processing, it's going to be a very competitive phone.
yeah, so they're taking control of the hardware and software, kind of like another company that we know
It starts
about.
with an A.
So there's that. Now I did notice a bunch of TV spots, even like just normal TV. So they're
Mm.
going all in on the marketing. I'm going to play a little bit, and I couldn't find the Australian version of this. And this week I've been watching a lot of NBA and on ESPN. They've been playing like lots of ads with the Pixel 6. But this is a little bit of the ad that's going to highlight the hero for this phone.
At its heart, the revolutionary Google Tensor, Google's first chip, and a processor capable of powering a new kind of smartphone. With an adaptive battery, intuitive enough to know where you need power and send it there.
I think, Apple's been doing that as well, or they claim to. It'll be interesting to see how Google does with that.
Yeah.
There was another really interesting podcast, the Vergecast, did an interview with Sundar Pichai and a guy called Rick Osterloh. Do you know this guy,
Never heard
Kelvin?
of him.
He's been around. He's the SVP of Devices and Services. And I don't know, quite impressive guy. He was almost like answering for Sundar, if that makes sense.
Like stepping over him.
And I just feel like there's a bit of tension between those two. But here is Rick answering the question from Dita, which was quite a good question, which was like, what makes the Pixel 6 any different to all the other flagship phones out there?
It really is a clear representation of Google's brand. Like what we're trying to deliver is the very best possible Google experience. we do that by bringing, all of our services that many people use, pulling them together in a cohesive user experience on the latest Android.
Yeah, that's just a very short bit. I think it's worthwhile listening to, so I might post that in the link. But very interesting answer. It's like very multi-layered representation of Google.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Look, I'm showing images on, if you're watching on Twitch and YouTube of Android 12. There is a lot of talk about how personalized it's going to be. For example, it says here in the marketing copy, says the Pixel 6 Pro will show you what you need when you need it. So depending on the time of the day and where you're going, it will show you different pieces of information. And that is where Google really is the king, right? It's got your Gmail, it's got your Google Maps, it's got your calendar, so it can do these things. And I feel like that is the Google experience, right? That personalization. They haven't really taken that, by the neck and really, run with it. So I think this will change a lot of things as well. The other thing that they're selling a lot of on the website is how secure it is using the new Titan chip. So I think they're trying to get corporates on board as well to challenge the standard, here's your iPhone on day one when you join a company. So yeah, I think they're going after Apple.
Yeah, and with the Tensor, a lot of the processing is done on device.
Good point.
Also similar to another company.
Yeah.
But it's hard to think that you're going to get the full Google experience just with things on device.
Yeah. I think the company that's going to get hurt most by this is this guy that I have in my phone, and that is the Samsung. I think Google is back in the game. I had a Nexus 5. I loved that phone. The cameras were rubbish, but it had a Google sort of flavor about it. You could do so much with it. Samsung does have their own chips called the Exynos chips, but they're nowhere near as good as even the standard Qualcomm chips that come with everything now. So I think I've seen some of the beta for One UI 4.0 that is based on Android 12. If it doesn't bring across some of these integrations, which I don't think it will, because Samsung just doesn't have that level of data to pull from. I think the S22 has to be amazing hardware-wise to really challenge this price, this software and hardware integration that Google is now, going hard on.
Now, a couple episodes ago, we talked about the new flagships, perhaps for Samsung, which are the folding ones, right? So, do you think they're going to give up on the non-folding phones?
I think that's a really good point, right? Because they just got rid of the Note, right? So will the new flagships be the folding phones, and then the budget phones are your typical A, like they have a Series A instead of the Series S phones for budget phones? I totally see that happening, right? The other unfortunate phone that was launched in Techtober was the new Surface Duo 2 from Microsoft. We're not even going to talk about it because I haven't looked at some of the early sort of reviews. It's rubbish. But even simple things like the way when you open a folding phone and the way the app sort of knows what to do with that, it's a huge thing, right? Like these apps need to be optimized for folding phones. So I that's a really good point. If Samsung can work with enough app developers to do a beautiful transition, a beautiful experience on a big device that can fold, that's going to be their edge.
I was earlier today at JB, and thank you, Dominic, for letting us
go to JB,
roam around the streets and check out phones. Pieces of hardware in real life, not on a 2D screen in front of you. So I checked out the Flip and the Fold. Pretty impressive, I got to say. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, and you know what?
And I was helping a friend of the show, Sammy.
Yeah.
She's in the market for something. I believe she's ordering the new iPad Pro as well.
Oh, nice.
I may have had something to do with that, but we did have a look at the Fold especially, and the way it sort of opens up into a sort of iPad mini size with the pen as S Pen. I was impressed. She was impressed. I just feel like if the screen was slightly bigger, it might actually be a competitor to iPads.
Yeah, I never thought about it, because I think these folding phones are going to get cheaper and cheaper, right? So even if you get the Flip for your everyday consumer, it's still going to feel special, right? With that tall screen that you can fold. And the Fold could be for the prosumer. So yeah, I think the market is going to diversify into these little pockets of what do you really need. So
Seems like a missed opportunity for Microsoft, because I think the Duo was going to play that role. The in between the phone and the tablet.
yeah, I'm not quite sure
form
what
factor.
Microsoft's
Yeah.
angle is with the Duo, because
Well, I think that's what they're trying to do.
yeah, but there's a clear break in
Productivity.
between their folding device, right? There's an actual physical border on each of the screen, left and right, so you can actually see a break in the user experience. So either they need to work with Google or create their own OS to support a better experience. I don't know. I think maybe the Surface Duo 4 or something in 2 or 3 years might be the one to look at to really see what Microsoft's brand or thinking is, because they don't have one at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, like the iPad Pro with the iPad Pro. Personally, like it's replacing the laptop in a lot of ways. Not fully. I can't record a podcast on it just yet, but
Yet.
hopefully we'll get there. Just got to spend another $1,000. Is that
Pretty
right?
much.
But imagine a device that can replace a phone while doing that same thing. And I think it's something to do with these form factors. Is it like two folds? So it's
Just like,
the smallest version is
like a Japanese fan where you
phone.
just plop, 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 plop,
you
plop.
unfold it twice, A5 into A4.
Yeah.
I think there's something
Yeah,
there.
I think what will it look like in the next 4 or 5 years, right? The other really interesting thing about Samsung is they have DeX, where if you hook up your phone to a screen, you can run a full desktop operating system. So that's going to, I check my email like that. It's quite amazing. It's so much quicker than booting up your MacBook Pro, connecting to VPN, blah, blah. So you're going to have to get creative as a phone manufacturer now, right? It's not about just like a piece of metal with a glass sort of front on it. And then there's also glasses coming, like, Facebook's got the Quest things. Like, is that going to be it? I've seen the new Vive as well, that portable sort of VR headset that looks amazing as well. So no, I think, which is why I'm worried about Apple, going back to just HDMI and just SD cards. Like, there isn't really anything taking the market forward. But 4 or 5 years, let's see.